In March of 2011, a sleep clinic in Amsterdam ran an overnight study on a patient referred for excessive daytime sleepiness. The data was clean. The sleep was unremarkable. At 3:14 in the morning, the patient had a partial arousal, turned their head, looked at the corner, then settled back into sleep. Standard notes, filed and archived. In 2019, I pulled that file during a routine archive review. The patient's initials were mine. In March of 2011, I was employed at a different clinic in a different country. I had never been to Amsterdam. The date of birth matched mine exactly. The brainwave signature matched my own archival data. The home city on file, Edinburgh, where I was living. I opened the video footage. In infrared, patient in the bed, build, hair, sleeping position, all consistent with someone I recognized. At 3:14, the figure turned to look at the corner. I looked at the corner. Someone was standing there. I zoomed in, frame by frame, heavy infrared noise at maximum resolution, but underneath it, at the edge of the camera's range. Frame advance. Something in the noise began to organize. I thought it was a compression artifact, the kind of pattern the brain assembles for grain when you have been staring at infrared footage for too long. Frame advance. The same shape held. Frame advance. I realized I was looking at a face. I kept advancing. Frame advance. The head was no longer facing the bed. It was facing the camera. My name is not important. What I did for 11 years is. What I found while doing it is. What was standing in that corner in 2011, 3 years before I walked through that building's doors. And that is what I need to tell you about. I know how this sounds. I have told this story before. It has never gone well. I am telling it again because I have run out of other options, and because you are the only audience left who might find the error I cannot find myself. Let me take you back to the beginning, to the first anomaly, to the night I opened a file I should have closed. By the time I am done, you will understand what that footage means. I am still not sure I do. I was a sleep study technician for 11 years across 3 clinics in 2 countries. Brain activity, eye movement, oxygen levels, cardiac rhythm. All of it recorded simultaneously through the night. Every modern sleep clinic also records a video feed, infrared camera synchronized to the brain data. The idea is simple. A movement on screen cross-referenced with a spike in the data confirms whether a disturbance was internal, a dream, a micro-arousal, or external. Whether the patient moved themselves, or something moved them. Most nights, the footage showed nothing more interesting than a person shifting position at 2 in the morning. Most nights. I started in Edinburgh in 2009. I liked the work. I liked the logic of it. The data was honest. Bodies do not perform. Whatever the brain was doing at 3 in the morning, the electrodes caught it. A reliable world. A world where the correct answer was always in the record. I believed that for 2 years. The first anomaly. A 43-year-old man referred for sleep apnea, routine intake, routine setup. His apnea was moderate, manageable. By 5 in the morning, I was already composing the standard report. Then I reviewed the footage. He slept mostly on his side. M shifted at 1:17 and again at 3:40. At 3:14, he had his worst apnea event of the night. On screen, he stirred, lifted his head, and looked toward the corner of the room. Something about the way he looked made me pull up the full frame. There was something in the corners. I flagged it as a possible camera artifact, requested an equipment check. Nothing found. I moved on. I moved on for 8 months. Then a second patient had a 3:14 event. Looked at the corner. Something was there. Then a third. I started keeping a separate file. Over 14 months at Edinburgh, I documented 9 patients with the 3:14 signature. Yes, each one had their worst event of the night at that exact time stamp. 8 of the 9 looked toward the corner. 6 had a visible shape in the corner footage. 3 of them, in their follow-up notes, mentioned a dream of being watched. 1 in 9 would be coincidence. 3 in 9 is the uncomfortable end of it. What stopped me was not the number, it was the detail. 2 patients described the figure, in their own handwriting, in the general notes field, unprompted. The first, a tall person standing at the edge of the room who did not move and did not speak and was not doing anything except being there. The second, someone standing in the corner who felt very old. Not old like a person, old like a building. Warmbors. They had come to the clinic 8 months apart. They did not know each other. 2 strangers who had slept in the same room on different nights and described, in language that rhymed without being identical, the same presence in the same corner. I reviewed the infrared footage from both nights at maximum zoom. First patient, 3:14:22, corner pulled to maximum zoom. Infrared grain, the upright shape. I advanced frame by frame. Frame advance, shape in the grain, nothing clear. Frame advance, the geometry holds. Frame advance, the noise shifts. Frame advance, something resolves underneath. I stopped. There was a face. Pareidolia is well documented. The brain finds faces in ambiguous data. I know this. But pareidolia produces different faces in different images. I opened the second patient's footage. 8 months earlier, same room, advanced to 3:14, frame by frame. Frame advance. Frame advance. Frame advance. The noise shifts in exactly the same way. The same face. Same position, same proportions, same tilt of the head. I looked more carefully at the position. My first assumption was that the framing had changed. Different technicians set up the camera slightly differently. Angle, height, distance from the wall. These varied between studies. I checked the reference points, the wall socket on the left side of the frame, the corner of the bed frame on the right. They had not moved. The camera position was identical across both recordings. It had moved. Not toward the camera. Toward whoever was sleeping. I requested an equipment review. The camera was replaced with a newer model. On the new camera's second night of operation, at 3:14, a patient turned toward the corner. The face was there. New hardware, new installation, no connection to the previous unit. I transferred to Amsterdam in 2014. Modern facility, purpose-built. Glass and concrete, no history. Dawis. I worked there for 7 months before the first 3:14 event. 7 months of clean data, long enough that I had almost convinced myself Edinburgh was location-specific. Then, a patient with REM sleep behavior disorder, a man who had injured his wife twice during the night. At 3:14, his brain produced a signature I had only ever seen described in papers on hypnagogic hallucination. The pattern of a mind trying to fold a real external perception into the dream state's logic because fully waking was too much. He had shifted position 14 times in 6 hours. For 3 minutes and 40 seconds beginning at 3:14, he did not move at all. His eyes opened. He looked at the corner. His face did something I was not prepared for. Not fear. Recognition. In his follow-up notes under general observations, he wrote 4 words in block capitals. It was already there. He had never been to Scotland. I checked the Amsterdam archive, 5 years before I arrived. 18 studies with the 3:14 signature, 14 with directed gaze, 9 with a visible shape. It had not followed me from Edinburgh. It had been in Amsterdam before I arrived. 4 months in the Amsterdam archive, early mornings, late evenings. I told no one. 23 studies with the 3:14 signature, 18 with directed gaze, 11 with a resolvable face at maximum zoom. I placed all 11 faces side by side on the review monitor, 11 different nights across 5 years. Different cameras, different technicians, different patients. The face was the same in all 11. Not similar, the same proportions, same tilt, same direction of gaze. I checked the Bristol clinic where I had done a 6-month rotation in 2013, 8 resolvable faces in their archive. The same face. 3 clinics, 2 countries, 9 years of combined archive, 60 studies total, 1 face, at the same timestamp, in the same position, watching patients dream about being watched. The clinics were not networked. The patients had no connections. The cameras were from different manufacturers. The buildings were on different sides of Europe. I sent the compiled data to a researcher who specialized in anomalous sleep phenomena. She replied once. The timestamp consistency is the most significant element. The 3:14 window is not incidental. Something about that neurological threshold is what makes these patients accessible. The timestamp is not when it arrives. It is when they become able to perceive it. Then she stopped responding. The word that has stayed with me is not accessible. It is whatever this is. What the data implies, and I am using implies precisely, is that it is there all the time. The sleeping brain at its most permeable catches 3 or 4 minutes of it per night. The way you sometimes see a star in the corner of your vision that disappears when you look directly at it. Not because the star is not there, because the corner of the eye has different receptors. The patients are not dreaming about being watched. They are being watched. And every patient who described it used the same word. Old. Not old like a person, old like a building, old like a place. It does not belong to the patients, it belongs to the rooms. The same face, no technical connection between the buildings, occupying the space the way a smell occupies a house. Not arriving. Already there. I want to take you through the moment I confirmed all 11 Amsterdam faces were the same. That because the summary does not carry what the experience carried. 11 stills, same zoom level, same resolution. I moved through them one by one and advanced each to the frame where the face was clearest. First image, eye position locked. Second, different camera, different year, eye position matched. Third, brow line matched. Fourth, fifth, sixth, jawline, identical across all 6. Seventh, eighth, I was no longer breathing normally, the tilt of the head, same angle, all 8. Ninth, 10th. 11th. 11 images, one face, consistent across every variable. But there was something else, something I had not been looking for and nearly missed. The position in the frame was not the same across all 11. In the earliest image, 2008, the shape was in the far corner, hard against the wall. By 2010, it was slightly closer to the bed. By 2012, closer still. Same face, incrementally closer. Across 4 years of archived footage, across different cameras and different patients, it had been moving, slowly, steadily, the way a tide moves, not fast enough to notice in any single image, but undeniable when you laid them all in sequence. I went back and checked the Edinburgh archive. Same pattern. Earliest records, corner, later records, closer to the bed. 60 studies, multiple clinics, multiple countries, and across all of them, across the full span of the data, it had been moving in one direction. Toward the patients. You already know how this ends. I told you in the first 2 minutes, but I need to take you through the sequence because the cold facts stated plainly do not carry what the sequence carries. It was 2019. Systematic review of the Amsterdam complete records, chronological order, compulsive, I know that. Studies from early 2011, before my arrival. I opened a file, initials, date of study, referral reason, idiopathic hypersomnia. I checked the initials against the register, automatic, the kind of thing your hands do without consulting your brain. The initials were mine. Date of birth matched, in home city, Edinburgh. I opened the brainwave data. The signature matched my own. No record of how this patient came to be in Amsterdam. Referring doctor unknown. Home clinic field blank. Someone had run a sleep study on me in a city I had never visited, in a clinic I had no connection to while I was living in Edinburgh. I opened the video footage. Figure in the bed, build right, hair right. Sleeping on the left side, one arm folded under. How I sleep, how I have always slept. I watched the timestamp advance. At 3:14, the figure turned to look at the corner. I looked at the corner. Upright shape, standing. I pulled to maximum zoom, frame by frame. Frame advance, the shape holds in the noise. Frame advance, the vertical geometry is clear. Frame advance, the noise begins to resolve. Frame advance, the outline of a head. Frame advance, eye position. Frame advance, brow line. Frame advance, the jawline. I kept advancing. Frame advance. The shape was no longer in the corner. I scrolled the frame, scanning the room. I found it. It was standing at the side of the bed, standing over the figure that was sleeping there. I could not resolve the face from that angle. The head was turned down, in looking at the figure in the bed. I advanced one more frame. The face came up. The proportions were familiar. That was the first thing I registered, not a conclusion, just a quality, the kind of recognition that arrives before the brain has finished processing. I told myself it was fatigue, 2 years of staring at the same face across 60 studies. The brain begins to map it onto everything. Frame advance. The alignment corrected through the noise. I kept looking for the difference, the feature that would resolve it into someone else, anyone else. There is a point where the brain stops offering alternatives. The face is mine. What? I cannot state with certainty that it is me. The resolution is not sufficient. Infrared at maximum zoom produces ambiguous data. I also cannot state with certainty that it is not. Whatever has been in those rooms across 3 countries in 9 years, whatever 60 patients caught a glimpse of at 3:14 before their minds closed again, in the 2011 Amsterdam file, it is wearing a face that belongs to me. Standing over a sleeping body. A body I was walking around in Edinburgh, on the night this footage was recorded. I left sleep medicine in 2020. I cannot sit in a monitoring room at 3 in the morning with what I know. I cannot watch the clock approach 3:14. It's what I keep returning to, something old enough to be old the way a place is old, something that has been in these rooms for longer than the equipment used to record it. That something, in 2011, was standing over a sleeping body wearing my face. Either it knew I was coming, or it had already decided something about me. Last night I woke at 3:14. I do not know if that matters. People wake at 3:14 every night. I lay in the dark and I did not look at the corner of the room. That is the most honest thing I can tell you about where I am now. There are 3 explanations for everything I have described. I believe one of them. I am not going to tell you which. I left something out of this account deliberately. Something in the 2011 patient notes. If you have worked in sleep medicine, if you know what that notes field contains, you may already know what is missing. Drop it in the comments, not your conclusion. Just, you know? I am not someone who sees things that are not there. I am someone who saw something that was there. And that has been moving slowly toward the bed for longer than any of us have been keeping records. The question I cannot stop asking, why in 2011 was it standing over mine? Now you know.